Thank you for listening to the Matt's Movie Reviews podcast, available on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Stitcher. Also, please follow Matt's Movie Reviews on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Reddit, Instagram, and MeWe. And of course, be sure to visit mattsmoviereviews.net for the latest reviews, top 10 lists, and more. Now, on to the show.
Dig deep. What is your passion?
Get back here!
And how do we turn that passion into money?
A euthanasia service that comes to your door.
You know, I've been too easy on you. You're starting a class at the community college.
Wait, what?
I want good grades and perfect attendance.
You can't smoke in here. Come on! Margot Sala, Andra.
If that is your passion, go for that dream.
We're all just still trying to adjust. It's been a rough year.
See, magic is about making an audience feel something. Ideally, it would be a sense of wonder, but I'd settle for mild rage in your case.
We want her to take the next step and get married.
You don't care about how I feel at all.
For some reason, you think a different set of rules apply.
Why are you so cool with everything that's happening? I still listen to a tape my mom made, even though it hurts.
It won't be the same, but you'll heal. You remind me of me when I was your age. I wasted a lot of time being angry. Focus on your act.
I'm glad we met.
Hello and welcome to the Matt's Movie Reviews podcast. I am your host, Matthew Pejkovic, and this is episode number 430. Releasing April 22nd in theatres is Marvelous in the Black Hole, a dramatic comedy that tells the story of a rebellious teen who finds a connection with a surly magician while navigating her inner demons. A coming-of-age story about grief, anger, and the little miracles found in magic, Marvelous in a Black Hole is the latest film to star burgeoning actor Miya Cech, who I'm glad to say joins me today on the podcast. Miya, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much for talking to me.
Absolutely. You know, it's interesting watching this film and just reading up everything about Kate's inspiration for the film. And her thing was like she wanted really to, make a tribute to films that kind of like she watched as a kid. Movies she mentioned like Edward Scissorhands and E.T. What about yourself? What was it about the script that really kind of spoke to you as a person, as an actor, in regards to, the character of Sammy and just the story that Kate put together here?
Yeah, well, one of the main things that really drew me to Sammy was that she was different. She was really real and raw, and Kate is so amazing, and she really wrote this script in such a beautiful way that Sammy, I had never seen that as an actor. I had never seen a character who was really just grieving and going through a difficult time, and that looked like me, and someone who was not going through a hard time in a way that was made to look polished or how do you say it? Made to look
kind of like an airbrushed version of something.
Yeah. Like it wasn't glorified in any way. It was really just a real raw experience, and it was really interesting for me to see that as an actor because I had not seen any roles come through the works that was an Asian American girl who was just growing up through a hard time. And I was like, I have to do this. This is like a project that I really feel passionate about. And then I walked into my audition. I met Kate, I met Carolyn Maurer, producer. And I knew that I absolutely had to be Sammy because Kate was just so cool, just as a person. She's just so cool and has like a very set but collaborative idea of what she wants her film to be, which is super wonderful. And she wrote such a beautiful script and made an amazing film off of her own experiences, which is really wonderful.
I think the really interesting thing about Sammy as well is that you kind of perfected the art of the scowl in this movie, kind of like, and to kind of keep that as well throughout the whole film. You know, there are bits and pieces, of course, where kind of Sammy kind of breaks this kind of wall that she has, but to try to get into that mindset and kind of have that kind of that physical kind of portrayal of what's happening inside there. How do you kind of get to that moment where you can kind of keep that scowl just so kind of permanent and so fixed? Because from what I've known so far from talking to you so far, and like, well, I heard Kate talk about yourself, it's like Sammy's kind of like the total 180 from where you are as a person. So I'm sure, what do you tap into to try to get to that attitude that Sammy has?
Well, I don't know. I feel like as an actor, you kind of turning certain parts of you on and off is like almost a natural thing. And it's really funny because I actually didn't know that Sammy and Margot's relationship was based off of Kate's relationship with her grandfather.
Yeah.
I didn't know that it was kind of like based off her own story. And so when I first met with Kate, after I'd like gotten the role, she explained that to me. And I was like, part of me was like, pressure is on. And the other part of me was like, I want to make this good. Like, I want to accurately represent her own experience. And so that was one of the first things, is we kind of had to figure out where Sammy's like rage and stuff was coming from. It was really interesting because it wasn't really stemming from a place of being angry. It was stemming from more of her grief and not knowing what to do with the loss, with dealing with the loss that she was trying to get over. And I think it was only worsened that it sort of turned into rage because she saw that her father and her older sister it didn't seem like they were dealing with it as hard as she was. And she didn't feel like they would understand that feeling of like that gut punch feeling that she was. And so that was one of the things that was kind of where we had to pull from. And that was kind of like the baseline, general line of where we sort of started from. And then we sort of used that as our core and built up from there.
The core of the film is also this intergenerational friendship between Sammy and Margot. Margot, played by the great Rhea Perlman. The great thing about Rhea, and like I'm sure you will have known kind of like her work back in Cheers, etc., is that while Sammy has attitude, Margot gives it back as well. And I'm sure there's that great kind of interplay between you two. What's it like working with Rhea? And especially in the context of she's playing kind of like this kind of like almost like a mentor figure as well to Sammy. Is there kind of things happening behind the scenes between you two where you're trying to personify your own kind of relationship as well to kind of like equate what's happening on screen?
Yeah, so definitely. I mean, I was super nervous when I found out that it was Rhea Perlman, and we were having a magic lesson. That was like one of the first things we did. We did a magic lesson and went to the Magic Castle. I was super nervous because I was about to meet Rhea Perlman and was going to work with her. And so I was like super nervous about like, am I going to be professional around this legend? And she is just one of the kindest people I have ever met in the industry. She's so like, she's very humble and she's very warm and welcoming. She had like such a motherly energy to her, and she really just that relationship that Sammy and Margot had, that sort of instant connection and like pull towards each other, was really quite easy, because by the time that we had finished our magic lesson and got onto set, we were already giggling in between scenes. I already felt like we had a relationship, to the point where it was kind of like natural when we had to, in the later scenes, when we had to be more like buddy with each other. It was like super interesting to go from like having a bond as actors, as people, and then having to get on set and like not like Sammy, not like Margot. And it was almost harder for me to do that, which is crazy, but it was just such a wonderful experience. And I think that we definitely pulled from us being able to just giggle in between scenes We definitely pull from that to create the Sammy and Margot closeness that they had by the end of the film.
The whole thing about magic in the equation of it. So Kate was talking about how she kind of like before, filming started, she went to the Magic Castle and she learned a few things as well. It's funny. I came across this video she did back in 2019 when she was pitching the film to people, and she in part of the presentation she was doing magic tricks as well. And the thing I find about magic is that a lot of it is illusion, but I think most of the time the magicians themselves are playing characters or a version of themselves while up there. It's very much performance based. Do you find any type of connection between acting on screen as opposed to acting as a magician? Is there kind of like a connection between the two? When you are playing the role as a magician, or are you playing a character when you're up there? Because you are selling the trick, but you're also selling yourself selling the trick, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that as a person, you can contain multitudes. You can have different personas. I mean, I make this joke all the time with my parents. We all have, I mean, even I do, we all have our work voice. Mm-hmm. That's the voice when you get on the phone with your coworkers or whatever. But it's really, I definitely do think that there's similarities in ways that when you're doing magic, you're making an audience, you're telling a story with these cards and maybe it's tennis balls or whatever. You're telling a story and sort of going through a journey with an audience. With acting, you're doing the exact same thing, just with a little bit more editing. And through a screen and through a camera, you're telling a story, but you're being, you're a character. As an actor, you're a character, but you're telling a story, and you are really just, I mean, with movies that are more like fantasy and sci-fi, you're making an audience go through these same experiences that the character is going through. You're making the audience root for that character, cry with that character, laugh with that character. I mean, acting in and of itself is kind of like a magic show. Every time you make a film or a television show, you're kind of having a whole magic show, and the end of the story is kind of like the product of the magic, and it's interesting. It really is interesting, the similarities, and Kate made the wonderful decision to combine the two, and also combine animation, which is another form of storytelling. And she just combined all three of them so seamlessly and so flawlessly, and in a way that meshed so well. It was just incredible.
The Matt's Movie Reviews podcast is brought to you by 80s Tees. 80s Tees is an online retailer of licensed t-shirts and pop culture gear from your favorite movies, TV shows, cartoons, video games, comic books, and musicians. Celebrate your inner 80s nerd and click on the link in the show notes below to get the raddest retro t-shirts delivered to your door. The Matt's Movie Reviews podcast is brought to you by Loot Crate. Founded in 2012, Loot Crate is the worldwide leader in fan subscription boxes. Loot Crate partners with industry leaders in entertainment, gaming, sports, and pop culture to deliver monthly themed crates, produce interactive experiences in digital content, and film original video productions. No matter what you geek out about, Loot Crate has a subscription box for you. To get your very own exclusive collectibles, apparel, and gear delivered to your door, be sure to click on the link in the show notes below. The Matt's Movie Reviews podcast is brought to you by TeePublic. TeePublic is the world's largest marketplace for independent creators to sell their work on the highest quality merchandise. With over 1.2 million designs, TeePublic is sure to have something you love. When it comes to the magic itself, did you have any perceptions of what magic was before going in compared to what you see it as now after doing this movie?
Well, when I was a kid, I loved watching magic. I never really got into doing magic because it looks really hard. Because it's, as a consumer as a viewer of a magic show, you're filled with these questions of how did they do that? That's literally impossible. You're filled with so much wonder and this spark of wanting to know how it happened. And for me, especially, because I always want to know how things happen, how the phenomenons of the world. But once I, learned magic for this film, I was I was appreciative of, our magic instructor, Kayla Drescher, wonderful female magician. I didn't realize how much work actually went into doing magic tricks, because though it does look hard when you're looking at it, it also looks easy because, they're really just flipping a card and it goes away, it disappears, but it really is work because you have to perfect it. You have to make it look pretty while also making the trick work. And it really is just an interesting, it's interesting how much your perspective changes when you've seen both sides. And I feel like that's the same with acting. You think that, oh, they're just, just being happy or being sad or being, angry. But it really, as an actor, you realize that it really is a lot of work and you're pulling emotions from deep within. And because there is this little bit of self-pressure and maybe pressure around you, but self-pressure a lot to make the experience feel real. And so I feel like both magic and acting your perspectives will change when you see the opposite side.
Could it be accurate when I say that acting as a profession is somewhat kind of like a collection of hobbies that you get along the way? Because when you take on the role, you learn certain skills, right? So would you consider, learning magic, for example, is something that's going to stick with you for a while? Because I imagine it's a process where you have to repeat over and over and over to almost get it down as an instinct. Do you think, like, for example, next time you go to a party, you can pull off a party trick for people to check out?
Yeah, I don't think I could be that good, but I definitely, like you said, I kind of learned a bunch of things. Even from projects I've done in the past year, there's a show coming out later this August is what we're shooting for, called Surfside Girls. And I play Jade Lee, who's like this scientist, fashionista, but she's also a surfer. And so I got to learn a little bit of surfing for that. Magic was definitely something that, again, as a kid, I'd always loved watching. And after Marvelous, I actually started finding, with social media these days, certain things pop up. And because your phones are always listening, but certain things pop up. And I found myself, looking for magic tricks. I learned 2 magic tricks since Marvelous. One of them was really similar to a lot of the palming that we had to do in Marvelous. It's the trick from a lot of the Marvel movies, the Jimmy Woo card trick, which,
right.
It's really interesting how many you're correct. You really do pick up so many things. You kind of get to be, I like to think that acting is kind of a little bit like being jack of all trades, because you kind of get to dip your toe in every single water. You can be an astronaut, you could be a surfer, you could be a magician, you can be whatever you want when you're an actor without actually having to have the knowledge that a lot of those professions have. And you can sort of just have fun with it and see where you fit and what sticks with you.
You mentioned before kind of like how movie making and cinema is kind of like a magic in its own right. And I think it's especially so kind of like in the post-production process of it. And what's interesting about this movie is that the animation aspect of it, I don't think that was something that was really in the script or even something that was even mentioned during filming. I remember listening to Kate say that it was something more came about in post-production. When you first see kind of like those flourishes in the film where the inner workings of your character, especially the stuff that she has in the journal, kind of pops up on the screen. What was your first kind of reaction to that? Because that's kind of like, magic on its own. You've got a different kind of medium blended in with the live action stuff and appearing on the screen. I'm sure that would be really cool for you to see that, especially considering you didn't really know whether that was going to be part of the film in the initial stages of the filmmaking.
Yeah, one of the things that Kate, one of the first things in pre-production, Kate had given me the notebook that Sammy carries around through the film. And she kind of, because I love art. I love doing art. I love doodling and sketching. So she said, just sketch out some angsty stuff, sketch out some more positive stuff, just kind of doodle how you feel and just kind of explore your character through a medium and hobby that you enjoy already. And that was really wonderful. Seeing I mean, we really had that was an interesting thing because I don't know if this was mentioned already, but we finished filming October 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And we were originally like, felt really rushed because we had to go to Tribeca the following year.
Yeah.
And then the pandemic hit and the world basically turned upside down and everything paused. But it was kind of a blessing in disguise because it gave Kate and the editing team more time in post-production to really make the film what it is today and perfect it in a way and add little things that you might not have thought of when filming or in the first stages of editing. We were really able to put things that made the film as special as it is now. I mean, that artwork stuff, Kate was telling me that she didn't actually think that she was going to put that in, but she has a background in being an animation writer and she was an artist herself.
Yes.
So she was like we were all really happy that it turned out the way it did. And we got to see all parts of our like experiences and our little bits and pieces that we put into our characters put out on the screen. And I'm sure that Kate was happy that she got to put all the things about her story into the film. Yeah, I mean, definitely the choices of putting animation, but like more like actual writing and actual like line drawing and sketching forms of animation made it even better because it really did show what Sammy was thinking, the things she was doing, but explain them in a way that was different and unique and something that I have not seen on screen yet.
I've talked to actors before where they talk about sometimes jotting a diary, maybe their own perceptions of the character and kind of like maybe a backstory such. Is that a kind of like an approach that you take to your own characters? When you get a character, how do you like to kind of flesh out? Do you go by what's in the script or do you like to add your own personal flourishes, maybe with or without the filmmaker knowing what your perception is of the character?
Well, I think that personal flourishes always end up getting into the film, whether the actor intends to or not, because
Mm-hmm.
it's just you pick up certain habits as a person and as an actor, and you sort of always are bringing yourself into your character. Even if it's just like a little bit like a look or a expression that you make, it really does. It makes the character more you. It really does. And it's so interesting because I personally want to be a director, especially after working with Kate. I just am 100% sure. And I love to, one of the things that I like try to do is sort of talk to the filmmakers, like the directors, possibly writers if I can, and sort of really try to understand my character from how they see it. And then one of the wonderful things about being on this film is that it was collaborative and that Kate would be like, we got what we needed. So, you know what, you guys have fun with it. And we were able to sort of put our own spins on a scene. Maybe we saw it a little differently than the director did or whatever it was. And it is really a rewarding feeling when you go and see your film and you see those things that you put into your character on the screen.
Kate kind of cut her teeth as a filmmaker with short films, like many other filmmakers do. Is that something that you see yourself doing, maybe working on some shorts to develop your own craft, or have you even begun doing that or have any ideas about short films yourself?
I've been slightly busy recently. I do a lot of like writing. I do a lot of like just like writing little mini scripts and like, you know, little mini projects with friends. I really do hope that one day I'll be able to be a filmmaker. That is kind of where like my sights are set right now, and my heart is really set on that, on doing that as a career. But yeah, I mean, I'm really just taking every day as it comes, learning as an actor and learning from the people I've been so lucky to work with. Yeah, I mean, I really do hope that I make it to be a filmmaker one day.
You know, I read this quote by Kate where she said that Marvelous in the Black Hole was the film that she wished she had when she was growing up. She said that this was a movie for Asian Americans and women who rarely see themselves in the lead, for anyone who felt invisible or suffered of a difficult loss. And I'm just quoting here, for those wonderful and weird people who find beauty, humor, and resilience in the dark. I mean, it's such a very precise kind of vision of her own kind of like filmmaking kind of quest, her own filmmaking mission. When it comes to yourself, when choosing roles or working on projects, do you have your own kind of, vision of what you will like to do in regards to the roles you choose? And also, does that kind of also develop into what type of filmmaker you want to be as well? Do you want to make films in regards to that deal with these similar issues that Kate talks about in regards to Marvelous and the Black Hole?
Yeah, I absolutely love films like this where they're real stories and they also represent people who look like me, which is really incredible. But they're also real stories that they're outside the box and they're not the typical roles for someone who looks like me, which that was like the definition of Marvelous. And those are the type of films I want to make. In regards to choosing roles themselves, I definitely try to choose more of the roles that are like Marvelous, that are like real stories and about real people, real experiences. But I like to dip my toe in all genres and in the waters of all realms of acting, because as an actor, you really have a bag of tricks and you pull each experience you have as an actor. I mean, even within the same project, you pull different tools and different mechanisms. And it really is just kind of like a mishmash of different techniques. And, one of the most common questions I get is, what is your favorite genre? Because I have been so lucky to have done so many different, been able to film so many different genres. But the truth is I really love all of them, and I love them all for different reasons. And so I'm really hoping that when I'm a filmmaker and as an actor, I get to continue to represent Asian Americans in all different genres and represent real stories.
Well, for everyone out there listening, Marvelous and the Black Hole in theaters, April 22nd. It is a wonderful film. You've got so many great reviews already from the Los Angeles Times, Variety, and you can add my review on there as well. That's going to be up very soon, because I find this film to be really magnificent. I think what you guys done with Kate and what you've done with Rhea here has been absolutely just terrific. And I just want to say, Miya Cech, I thank you so very much for your time today. Congratulations on the movie. I hope to talk to you again in the future. So great to see you on screen. And I know you're so very busy and prolific, and hopefully we can talk again with it when you got more projects in the future.
Thank you so much. It was so nice to talk to you.
Thank you for watching the Matt's Movie Reviews channel. Please subscribe for more reviews, podcast interviews, and exclusive content. Also, if you would like to request a review and support my work, please join my Patreon via the link in the description below.